It's 6:02, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If you know of anybody else coming, if you want to take your phone out, and while you're silencing your phone, you can go ahead and text them and say, hey, walk in anytime. We don't care. If they're going to be late, it doesn't matter to us. We've got one panel member that we're still waiting on, but we're not going to wait on them. They'll be here. So my name is Tommy Loftus. I'm the public affairs specialist for the FBI here out of Mobile. We cover the whole entire southern half of the state. There's way too many counties to count. But I've been with them for just over a year, been in law enforcement since 1995. So it's in my blood. My wife's a police officer as well. She works for Judge Wilters as an investigator. Judge Wilters is actually D.A. Wilters, former Judge Wilters. He's a district attorney now, and he is your district attorney here in Baldwin County. You'll hear more about him later because he'll be on the panel tonight. I want to thank our panel members that will be up here after the film is over. But I'd be getting ahead of myself if I didn't say this right now. This is a warning for you parents out there that have children that are under the age of 17. This video that you're going to see is real and it is harsh. There is some very harsh language used in this video. There is one young lady that the film follows several people that are addicted to different drugs, and there's one young lady in this film that uses very harsh language. I want to warn you now. So if you got children in here under the age of 17 and you're a parent and you want to send them out and let them sit on the cooler while you watch it, but this video, we discussed this. And between the Baldwin County Board of Education and DEA and FBI, the Sheriff's Office, Fairhope Police Department, I mean, we had a real tough discussion about this, and we wondered how this would go. And this video has been shown across the nation thousands of times. It always gets really high reviews because it's real. So we wanted you to know that the reason we're here tonight is because there is an opiate crisis in our country. Don DeSalvo, where are you, Don? Where's Don? Don DeSalvo is the resident agent in charge with DEA. He's going to be up on the panel for you to ask questions of here in just a little bit. We're going to watch the film first, and then we're going to share some stories with you. I would not ever have to tell you this, but there are going to be three ladies tonight after the film. The film's about 47 minutes long. I want you to have all the information up front. The film's about 47 minutes long, and after that film is over, there will be three ladies that will share their personal stories with you. And when I say personal, you will know exactly how I mean when it hits home here. Two of those ladies lost children to what we're here talking about tonight, and one lady, she'll tell you her own story, but it's an amazing story. All three of these ladies are very strong, and I appreciate them coming tonight. So they're going to share their story afterwards, and then after they share their stories, we'll have about 25 to 30 minutes, and maybe even longer if you want to, for you to ask them questions. You can ask. This is an open forum. There's a lot of law enforcement here tonight, but do not be afraid to ask the questions that you want to know. If there's a question that you have that you want to ask, and you just say, hey, that's the Baldwin County Sheriff down there, or that's the DEA RAC down there, or that's the FBI ASAC down there, or that's Foley Chief of Police. I'm not asking any questions like that. If you're uncomfortable in that setting, if you want to do it afterwards, the ladies that are going to share their stories with you are going to walk outside, out on this porch area here where the Drug Education Council, one of our partners tonight, is going to set their table up. And there's all kinds of literature and resources and things that they will offer you. But that table will be there, and the ladies that share their story with you will be there to answer your questions. So don't get away from here. If there's something you want to know, if there's something you want to ask, if there's something that you want to just tell a story about, don't get away from here without doing that, okay? Because this is the opportunity. I want to thank all of our sponsors tonight, which obviously you'll see them on the panel, but we have the Baldwin County Sheriff, Hoss Mack, here. We have Don DeSalvo with DEA. He'll be up on your panel. We have DA Bob Wilters. He'll be up on your panel. We have Ms. Hope Zena with the Baldwin County Board of Education. She'll be up on your panel. Ms. Donna Dobbins with the United States Attorney's Office. She'll be here. She'll be up on the panel. But once the movie is over, we're going to move them up on the panel, and then we're going to share those stories, and then we'll go into the question and answer. So I hope everybody's comfortable. If you get thirsty, there's water out here. Bathrooms are out this door. If you go out this door and take a right, you'll find the bathrooms down there. It's about a 47-minute video. We really want you to see it because this is a partnership between DEA and FBI. And you will see that the two men that open up the video was at the time the director of the FBI. He is no longer there anymore, and the DEA acting superintendent, he is no longer there anymore. Is that correct? So both of these men that you're going to see open up the video, we're glad that they did the intro to it, but they're no longer in their positions anymore. We want you to know that we recognize that. And DEA and FBI are working now to edit a different version of that. So, but it is a partnership with us tonight. So I want to thank you for coming out tonight. I hope that when you leave here, that there will be no question that you have that you hadn't gotten at least an answer to or some help with. Drug Education Council is here with a lot of resources and information. So we want to help you help our community, because that's why we're here.
Thinking about using drugs, say something.
You're going to see that once the addiction starts, it is often too late. By telling somebody, you could be saving a life.
I didn't care. I didn't think about it. I just did it. Once we started getting high, it was done.
She was 17 years old, and the only way I knew about it is because she was arrested.
Started smoking pot around 18, and I was always offered prescription drugs, and I never would take them. Then I was in a car accident.
I was running down in the middle of the night to get some water, fell down the stairs, landed on my back on the wooden floor.
It started for me with pot and just progressed into hell, basically.
Weed didn't do it for me, but definitely weed started it all for me.
It was definitely something I didn't see until it was too late. I had no clue what I was getting myself into, so.
Started taking 3 at a time, and then I was taking 4 at a time, and then I started taking
I became addicted that day.
When you're getting high, it's not just a drug.
You're hooked.
$500 going to
And
dope.
she was a convicted felon at the age of 18.
I had maggots in my leg.
Turned to prostitution.
Stealing from my family.
Married, mother of 3, and I'm
It'll
tripping.
take you to hell and back.
It's not just a little pill.
Takes control of you,
I started using heroin.
The same heroin that just killed
You
me.
can't go back and say I'm
and
sorry.
it will win.
It will get you.
Her sister found her.
Died in her sleep.
My daughter.
She was dead.
Being addicted to opiates is like chasing a dragon. You're constantly seeking that first high. But what's gonna happen if you actually catch it?
Come from a great family, you know, always had what I wanted. Never had a curfew. I could sleep over at my friend's house whenever. I could have done anything. They would have paid for me to go to any kind of school, stuff like that, and they paid for guitar lessons.
I grew up with my dad. My mom wasn't in my life, though. He pretty much was mom and dad throughout the whole life. He would tutor me for at least an hour. On the weekends, we'd go out, we'd go camping, we'd go out on the boats. We always had something planned.
She started in gymnastics when she was like a toddler, and she was a cheerleader through middle schools, high schools, and she was also a competitive cheerleader. She started competing probably in 7th grade. She was a very good student. She was in AP classes, AP honor roll.
Worked myself up through the years with minimal college to a position. I worked as a corporate account executive. I was making about an average of $122,000 a year. Things were pretty good financially. We were secure. Kids were happy. We had no real issues.
Dad was military, Mom was Korean. Everyone I grew up with was the same way. Everyone's parents was military and Korean parents, Korean mom. No, I did martial arts, ballet, gymnastics, did all kinds of stuff. I did piano lessons. I was an honor roll student, always went to school. I was like 3.43 grade point average.
I had a great childhood, great family. We did a lot of camping, a lot of fun stuff, going to the beach, camping at the beach. Very active in scouting, Boy Scouts, and something my father, me and him did together. You know, a couple days before my 18th birthday, I actually got my Eagle Scout, which was a big accomplishment for me.
I met my first husband when I was very young. I was 13. And then we got married at 17. So I got to grow up pretty quick. I was 22 years old, and that's when everything started. I got pregnant with my youngest daughter. Once I had her, they gave me Oxycontins. That was the pain medicine. And from then on, that's where my addiction started.
A friend offers you something at a party or at home, or you're having a bad day and you need something to pick you up, so somebody hands you a pill and says, here, this'll help you feel better. That's how this problem always starts.
I was at a concert, and I was 15 at the time, and I was drinking a beer, so I got a possession alcohol charge. I got put on probation, so then I couldn't smoke pot anymore. So I started to panic, and then somebody approached me and said, well, here, try this, and it was Oxycontin 80.
So I was hobbling into work, and a young lady that worked there used to be a pharmaceutical sales rep, and she had some samples of things. And she said, Katrina, have you gone to the doctor for this yet? And I said, no. So she said, well, I have these things, take one. Not more than that, go home, take one, you know. And I had a habit every night where I'd go home and have a glass of wine. So I went home that night and I took what she gave me, but instead of taking one, I took two, because I didn't even know what they were. And took the two, had my glass of wine, and all of a sudden, it just triggered something in my brain, and I would say I became addicted that day.
I think the new friends had a really, really big impact on, you know, when she got to that fork in the road, you go left or you go right, and I think at that point, the friends helped pick the road that she chose. This sounds really appealing. I'm going to try that. But I guess what most people and most kids don't understand is, you know, when you try something, you're not trying it. It's your new path.
I just like the feeling of certain things being high. It wasn't like I'm depressed, so I'm gonna take this to make me feel better. It was kind of like, I'm feeling good, I'm gonna try this to see if I can feel even more better.
Started taking 3 at a time, and then I was taking 4 at a time, and then I started taking like 6 at a time. And then I went from taking them orally to shooting them. And that was the end.
I went back to the doctor a couple times and got him to refill the medicine to the amount that he couldn't refill it anymore. So then I started buying Oxycontin off the street. From there, Oxycontin started to be more expensive and harder to find. A girlfriend of mine introduced me to heroin. I could get a whole lot more for a whole lot less. And then once I shot up the heroin, that was it from there. My addiction took off, and my daughter was 7 months old when I became physically addicted to heroin intravenously.
I never hesitate to ask them all which drugs they've tried. And they'll typically say, I've started off with marijuana, tried cocaine, and I've tried oxycodone. And I ask them, of all the drugs they've ever tried, what's the most addictive drug? And without a doubt, 100% of the time, they'll say the most addictive drug is oxycodone.
You know, the drugs, you know, feel like it took my mind over and made me do things that I, you know, normally brought up not to do, you know. And it just turned me into a monster.
You know, I just went in my medicine cabinet. My buddy's like, oh, hey, these will get you high. Let's do some. So I was like, okay, you know, you talk me into it right here. I don't have to pay anything, sure. It doesn't even have to be a drug dealer. It could be right in your house. And next thing you know, you're hooked.
My friends in the beginning were the friends that didn't do anything, and then I met the crowd that did do stuff. You are who you hang out with. That is for sure.
These kids go into it as, I'm just going to go to a party and, hey, they're doing this over here. Let me, you know, I want to fit in. Let me do it a little bit. And it's the devil. It gets you. It's, you know, it's that temptation. Hey, this is a fun party over here. It'll suck the life out of you.
All I wanted to do, if it had been in front of my face, is do it. It's not just a little pill, you know. Respect the power of that, you know, of that pill. It's just because it's a prescription, it is every bit as deadly and every bit as addictive.
I worked at a daycare, taking care of other people's kids. I drove the daycare bus. I had to take their children to school. But before I could drive their kids to school, I was in the bathroom of the daycare, crushing up pills, snorting them, so I could go about my day.
The whole time you're sitting there saying you're not a fucking addict, you're not addicted, guess what? You fucking are. Because why are you taking that hit saying, nah, dude, I can quit when I want? You know, you're addicted. People are like, oh, I only smoke weed. I'm not addicted. It's natural. Fucking whatever. Tell yourself whatever. Oh, it's legal now. Oh, fuck off. You know, whatever.
The first time somebody uses an opiate drug, the euphoria that they get is something that they continue to search for and seek for. So while you could do that in the beginning by just chewing on the drug, over time you can't get that high anymore. And so now you have to take it up to the next level. And nobody sets out thinking that they're going to end up being a needle user. But every one of those needle users will tell you that they couldn't get the high anymore doing it the way they were doing.
Heroin became my best friend. Heroin became the love of my life. I put heroin before my family. I put heroin before my children. And I thought that I couldn't do nothing in life anymore without heroin.
There's absolutely no difference between, in my mind, a heroin addict and a pill addict. We both will do anything to get it, break the law, do whatever. You're both addicted. You both go through the withdrawals. You both go, it's the exact same thing.
It's everywhere. It's in your fucking cabinet somewhere. It could be in your grandparents' cabinet. It could be at your friend's mom's cabinet. It fucking could be anywhere. That's pills. But, well, shit, heroin could be in a drawer somewhere. Who knows? It's all the same shit. One's just prescribed to you, and one you fucking go cop on the street.
There's no way to say no with the opiates. It's hard. Real hard. I can tell myself no, 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 but my body, as soon as you think about it, you get anxiety, your palms start to sweat. You know, your mental ignores your physical part of it.
I am very angry. And one of the things I'm most angry about, and I tell her all the time, is that drug was so much more important to you than me. And I'm the one that can help you. I'm the one that helps you. I'm the one that supports you. I'm the one that'll always be there for you. You need something, I'm going to be the one to take care of it for you. But something that literally destroyed everything good within you was so much more appealing. Wanted that so much more than anything I could offer her. And I'm angry. I am angry about that.
The progression of addiction and the behavior that comes with it is pretty standard, regardless of where you're born, how much money you have, how old you are, what your race is, what your nationality is. You can be the smartest person in the world. The minute that chemical hits your bloodstream, you lose control of what it does in your body. You can't control it. Nobody can control it. I don't care who you are. It's not controllable.
I lived in crack houses, and it's almost like something you see on TV, an abandoned building with drug paraphernalia everywhere. It might be a piss-stained mattress, and God knows what else is on it. There was actually a place in the city that we were at, and a lady had overdosed in the bathtub. She had died. She was still in the bathtub. We'll just find another room in the house, and that's what my day consisted of. It became my full-time job. The needle was my boss, a very demanding boss.
Your whole day revolves around it. You go to sleep doing it, you wake up doing it. You know what I mean? It's like some people smoke after every meal they have. No, you're doing a fucking shot.
It's a never-ending vicious cycle. It's the same thing over and over and over. You wake up, all you want to do is find out how you're going to get something, how you're going to get it.
You know, it's kind of stupid if you think about it, because I'm wasting all this money stealing from my family and my friends just to do a drug and fall asleep, you know? And then I wake up sick, so I'm like, crap, now I got to do it all over again, you know? You're still chasing that first high. So, you know, in order to be high, you got to at least be normal. And to get there, you got to at least do enough to where you're not sick anymore, so.
Well, usually, like, if I had stuff a day before, I'd always save a bag for the morning time, so when I wake up, I could get well. And I call it that because in the end, I wasn't using to get high anymore. I was using to stay well, so I wasn't sick. You know, I'm not even getting high. I'm just trying to, you know, be able to get up out of bed. You know, my head was always on my lap, you know. I feel like I missed a couple years of my life because there's a lot that, I mean, it's just a fog, black fog, because, you know, I really wasn't there, you know.
My addiction level was so bad that I couldn't even function without 40 pills a day. I was ill. Like, literally every 4 hours, the chills started setting in. And I would wake up and I woke up sick. And that's the way it went all day long.
How do you know you're an addict? It's when you're doing something that you know is not good for you, that's harming you, but you can't help yourself. When your relationships are starting to fall apart around you, and you don't care, and the only thing that's on your mind is about how to get the substance and how to get to the next high, you're an addict. You can't maintain an opiate addiction and a normal life for very long.
I felt like after my first year of using it, I actually got physically addicted to where I actually needed it to even to wake up and get out of bed, start moving around, take a shower. And that's when I started, you know, stealing from my family, friends. You know, whatever money I had in my pocket was all going to it. If I got a $500 paycheck, $500 going to dope.
Because you always tell yourself, whenever you're using drugs, and especially it's like a super addictive one, oh, I'm not addicted. Motherfucker, you're addicted. You know what I mean? Like, you're fucking addicted. You're in denial. You know, you might not be addicted at that point in time, but you're going to keep fucking using, and a month later or 2 months later, you're fucking addicted.
At one point, my husband said he would stop putting gas in the van so I could drive the distance to the city to get my drugs. And I said, well, I'll show you. I'm going to move to the city. So I don't need my van, and I don't need gas money, because the dope dealers are going to be living right here with me. And that's what I did. I ran away from home.
You will be high and put yourself in situations that you will get hurt. Someone will take advantage of you. You know, you'll be knocked out, it's going to happen. You're going to get hurt.
Some people who have money and they don't have to steal for it. And then you meet other people who, you know, just pawn their family's TV and is coming to get high and then deal with the consequences later.
She stole checks from her grandmother and signed them. She stole my debit card. If it wasn't nailed down, it was in the pawn shop. She spent $800 a week. My daughter, who had, everything handed to her, could have gone anywhere in the world, very book smart, very motivated, worked at a strip club. My little girl degraded herself just to get that.
Women turn to prostitution, which I've done myself. Guys will steal. They'll rob you right in front of you. I've seen guys take guns out on dealers and steal and rob everything from them, not even worrying about if they get shot or end up in jail.
People get fucking raped. People get killed over stupid shit. It's people now. I can say it's just a drug, but like when you're getting high, it's not just a drug. It's some fucking shit.
Best thing that can happen to someone who's addicted to oxycodone is that they can be arrested. That's the best thing. The best thing that they can be arrested and go to jail. Everything other than that is worse. It's going to end in a bad way.
You're going to get caught eventually, so I just didn't think it was going to be me. I would just think, they must have screwed over the wrong person, they got caught because they weren't careful enough.
She was pulled over. I searched the car, and she had a quantity of pills. At that point, she was smoking them, so there was some type of a pipe device in them, so she was arrested. And she was a convicted felon at the age of 18.
I have 4 kids. My youngest son will be 1 this month. I've been locked up for freaking 8 months. First time I came to jail, first time I got locked up this year, he was 2 weeks old. Don't even know my kid. My other 3 are in foster care right now. I never thought any of this would ever happen to me. The only thing I care about is my kids. Like, my kids are suffering. It's not me. I give two shits if I'm suffering. I mean, yeah, it sucks. But it's like, my kids, they didn't do anything in this. My parents, they got to come visit me through, I don't even get through a fucking window. I get through a fucking camera. Their little camcorder. That sucks.
It's not worth it. Losing your freedom sucks. You have somebody tell you when to get up, when to shower, when you eat, what you eat, and you have to worry about the other people that are in here and that are in here for, life, and they don't care about you.
I was supposed to go to court November 2011, and the judge was supposed to let me go. He gave me the maximum, which ended up being 23 months, 2 years instead of the 10 months. And at the time, I was so angry. In retrospect, I'm very thankful because I would have, I know for 100% certainty I would have gone right back out and done it again.
I got kicked out of my house, and I met your neighborhood-friendly drug dealers who were like, oh, you can crash on this couch. And they, of course, they'd give me stuff here and there, but it wasn't ever enough for me to even enjoy it, so that made me run fake prescriptions.
You don't think about anything. You don't think about anybody you're hurting. You don't think about before and after. You don't think fucking 7 fucking dudes in all black are fucking running up in your fucking house. FBI! You don't think you're gonna be on the fucking news. You don't fucking think anything. You don't think any of that shit.
Every generation seems to have their drug of choice. Unfortunately, this generation seems to have found prescription opiates as that drug of choice. And even more unfortunately, the consequences of those drugs are far more devastating than anything else we've seen in the past. Chemically and physiologically speaking, there's very little difference between oxycodone, morphine, and heroin. It's just that one comes in a prescription bottle and another one comes in a plastic bag.
In the beginning, I would always try and get pills because you know what you're getting, You know it's always going to be the same thing. And then eventually that just got too expensive, So then you'd go for heroin because it's cheaper, but you take that risk of getting really good stuff and overdosing, or getting fake stuff, or just stuff that isn't good enough to even get you well.
a lot of my friends were trying heroin, you know, to get the same high from the Oxycontin, and it was cheaper, and so of course I got into it, and it just grabbed me, you know.
I can tell you this, that I think she was able to access heroin, more heroin, easily than the pills. When she was using one or using the other, she was the same horrible, difficult person.
I always said that I would never touch heroin ever in my life, and it was prescription drugs that led me to try heroin. Prescription drugs are the same thing. It's an opiate. You can get 4 shots for the price of 1 pill, and it's a dirty drug because you never know what you're gonna get. People can cut it with something that can kill you, you know? That's how most people overdose, is that it's cut with something bad.
The doctor asked me, he said, where are you getting your heroin from? Where, you know, and I said, I'll never tell you who I'm getting it from. He said, I don't want to know from who. He said, I want to know from where. And he said, well, let me tell you what you're shooting up. He said, you're shooting scrambled heroin, and they are using meat tenderizer as a cutting agent. And it's not like, you know, a bag of heroin comes with ingredients on the back. And of course you trust your drug dealer that he's going to just, you know, keep you coming back to him, but he claims he didn't know either. That's how he got it. But yeah, so it eats everything away underneath.
In here, they shoot up meat fucking tenderizer, and they have like big blue black marks. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, oh, that's meat tenderizer. You've got a few of them. What do you mean? You didn't learn? You don't know. You don't learn because you're trying to get high. It doesn't matter.
A lot of my friends have had abscesses. They might get a staph infection, which turns into MRSA, or, you know, Hep C. And, you know, if that's your only needle, that's your only needle, so you're going to use it again.
At one point, I had an abscess in my leg that was so bad. I had staph infection. So my leg was like 4 times its normal size. When the doctors cut my leg open to clean it out, I had maggots in my leg. They were eating the rot, the infection. That wasn't enough for me to quit. As I was admitted to the hospital, they gave me a PICC line, which is an IV line. I had the dope dealer come into the hospital and shooting heroin into my IV line. I have contracted hepatitis C from sharing needles with people that I don't know who. I shot up toilet water because I didn't want to spend any money to go buy a bottle of water. So we would stop at public restrooms and use toilet water to mix with it to shoot it up. Rainwater on the side of the road, and we'd suck it up in the needle and shoot our dope. I didn't care what it was going to do to me later on, just I wanted the feeling of it right then and there.
Withdrawal for the individuals that are taking the heroin that's available now looks like extraordinary physical, muscular pain. And very few people can actually manage it.
Like, you know how when your whole body hurts when you have the flu? And, it's like 15 times worse than that. Opiates, you're getting sick. I don't know who the fuck you think you are if you think you're fucking stronger than some fucking dope, because you're not. You know what I mean? Your body's gonna give in, your mind's gonna give in, your fucking judgment's gonna give in, you're gonna fucking bow. And that's just the fucking way it is. That's the fucking way it is. That fucking withdrawal is a bitch.
You feel like you just want to die when you're going through that. At that point, you're willing to do anything to get that next high so you can just feel normal.
I mean, I remember her in her room crying and just busting her room up, screaming to me, just get me a little. Just get me a little so I can stop. No.
Feels like your skin's crawling and you can't sit still, and you'll do anything to make it stop.
You can't move. You constantly sneeze. Your fucking whole body fucking aches. It fucking hurts. Fucking people are crapping on themselves. People are puking on themselves. People are doing both at the same time. You would probably rather be dead than have to actually go through a withdrawal.
It was horrific. I was sitting on the toilet, diarrhea, vomiting on the floor, so weak I couldn't even move. I just lay there like, I don't want to eat, drink, nothing.
It's just something that I never ever want to experience again. It is the worst feeling ever. And I wouldn't wish that feeling upon my worst enemy. That's how bad it is.
Every day I come to work knowing that somebody died. And more times than not, we have at least one prescription drug or other substance abuse case. Your friends, your family will find you dead, and then what happens? And then that is the image that they get stuck with for the rest of their lives.
I've lost several friends to heroin and prescription pill overdose.
I know 2 people on a personal level that had died from it.
You know, one time my friend, she got out of here. She fucking got high. She wasn't even out 6 days. She was dead.
One of my friends, she took her normal dose and OD'd. Her sister found her with a needle in her arm in her room, which was not good.
The day that I overdosed, I was having a hard time finding a vein, and a girlfriend of mine said, well, just go in your neck. You have your jugular vein. And I said, okay. It didn't let me push all the heroin in, and instantly it killed me. When the ambulance got there, they gave me a shot of Narcan, and I was non-responsive to the Narcan, which is adrenaline, and that's to, jumpstart your heart. And it didn't work. So they had to use the defibrillator, and that's where they shock your heart back. They got a pulse. They got me to the hospital, and I was still kind of in and out of it. But when I came to, I unhooked the IV from the pole and unhooked all these little things they had on me, and I went and walked right out and got in my van. And I showed up to the dope dealer with the gown on, these things stuck all over me, the IV in my arm, and he sold me heroin, the same heroin that just killed me. I utilized the IV a couple times before I turned it back in. I have nowhere really to shoot, so that was a freebie.
So everything came to a head. I was writing the prescriptions and full on with my addiction. And I ended up getting caught and going to jail. And while I was in jail, my daughter got involved with some friends. From what I understand, her friends were all doing prescription pills. I had no idea. I didn't even know it was a problem. I just thought it was my problem. And she said, Mom, you don't have any right to talk. Look at you. Look where you are. I said, but Kirsten, you saw where it put me. I can't imagine you would do the very same thing that I did. I was like, how? It just didn't make sense.
My mom, I would go to the doctor's office every time with her. I told her I'd go in for her, and usually it works because she'll go in for me and ask for my prescriptions, and they give it to her. And so I went in there and I asked, and next thing you know, she got arrested, and then she called me saying that I had a warrant for me. I said, why would you make me go in and do that? To your own daughter, knowing that she can get caught and get in trouble. And she said that she was sorry because that she didn't realize how bad her addiction was.
You need help, Kirsten.
When I talked to her, she didn't even say goodbye. She must have nodded off the phone because I heard and that was it. It was Saturday afternoon. I was in the jail, and they came down and told me they needed to see me. And I went up, and because her father and I were both arrested for the same thing, we were both there, so I saw him coming, And the detectives came and told us that she, what had happened. The parent overdosed and that she was, initially they said she'd passed, and then they said she was in ICU, struggling for life. They wanted me to, talk to the doctor, and the doctor recommended I disconnect all life support, and I refused. And then they had 7 resuscitation efforts, I guess, and eventually, that morning she passed away. So. At her funeral, most all the kids were high. Death is real. And I will say, because I remember being that teenager too, so I know it's like they're gonna mock it, but it's real. And I think I'm still in shock. Like it is hard. I don't even know how to put it into words. Maybe that's why I'm able to deal with it, because it's so mind-numbing that someone you love that much. She was my first love. Someone you love that much, you can lose like that, and you can't go back and say I'm sorry or set a better example or talk them out of it, and I know she didn't want to go. I know that's not what she wanted. I know that she had, all these things that she wanted to do, and I know that as they resuscitated her through the night, that was her way of clinging to life, But it was too much.
I love my children more than anything in the world. I will walk through fire for them. And I know a lot of parents feel that way. But you can't feel that way. You have to understand what you're dealing with is not your child. I put my own child in jail to stop her from this. And that's not an easy decision to make. It's not a fun decision. Nobody wants to know that their little girl's sitting in jail. But she was 7 months clean, eating healthy, getting her rest, no drugs. My son, my nephew, my mother, and I went to get her. And she came out and she was healthy. Everything was great. Everything was great. There were no problems, no fighting, no talking about, Mom, I'm feeling funny, I need to go to a meeting. Nothing. Everything was just that little girl at 16 before all this stuff started. That's who she was. And then she asked to go to the store to get a pack of cigarettes. And she came home, said, oh, Mom, I'm sorry I was late. They didn't have my cigarettes. I had to go to another gas station. Okay, and things fine. So I'm cooking dinner, and I'm like, you want to help me cook? She's like, no, I don't want to help you cook. So I'm going to go in my room and watch TV. And she was so bubbly, like nothing. Nothing was wrong. And she went upstairs, and it was maybe 40 minutes. I was cooking dinner. Dinner was done. And I'm hollering for the kids. My son and nephew come down, and Sierra didn't come down. I think she fell asleep or something. So I go upstairs and knocking and knocking and knocking on the doors, no answer. I open that door, and my little girl is on the floor dead. And I remember when I pushed on her chest, I heard that last breath. I heard I was in my kitchen cooking dinner, and that happened 17 steps up, and I had no idea that when she left this house, that was going to happen. And I spend my Sundays looking at a gray headstone in a patch of grass. I will be spending my Christmases there, her birthdays there, all my holidays, because she took that wrong turn.
My girlfriend Sierra, she passed away a year ago this month, and from heroin, and that's a constant big reminder in my head that You know, if I even pick this stuff up once, it's gonna kill me, you know? And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her, and you know, not a morning that I wake up that I don't wish that she was laying beside me, you know? She was my best friend. We went to high school together. Sorry. I met her in high school. I'm sorry. And I just miss her a lot. I wish she was still here with me.
Sierra came home on February 12th. Sierra died February 18th. And she got out. Still calling her. Still calling her. It's that powerful that you could spend 7 months clean, and being educated on nothing but how to beat it, how bad it is for you, you know, all this. And you last 6 days.
The spiral down is so fast, you know? It doesn't take much. And I lost everything. I lost my daughter, first and foremost, but I lost pictures, every material possession I had. I had never been in trouble in my life. I'm now a felon at 41 years old. So all that work I did, you know, all those dreams I had, you know, it's like I'm starting over again with a huge weight on my shoulders, you know, all for a pill.
My dad doesn't even trust me anymore, which is hard because my dad's always trusted me my whole life. I've never had my dad look at me with disappointment before I did this. I'm a criminal, I'm an addict. That's how everybody will always perceive me. Listen to what they say no. Just say no. You're not uncool for saying no. You're more cool for saying no, I think. I wish I could have said no. If I could go back and do it all over, I would definitely go back and say no.
I didn't feel like I was physically hooked, but that's because I never gave it a chance to stop. You know, and I didn't really learn how to enjoy life without drugs. As much as I wanted to quit, I was too scared to ask for help. I don't want to freak my parents out by telling them I'm hooked on some hardcore drug. It didn't kill me like everyone told me.
It's not worth it, and it will get you. You're no different than anybody else. It will destroy your life. You will end up in a jail, you'll end up dead, or you'll be in some crazy institution for the rest of your life. And that's serious, and that's for real. And it took me coming to jail and being incarcerated. And it took me missing my mom's funeral, missing my children grow up. It's taken all of this, because nobody in their right mind would turn their back on their dying mom for a drug. I want to be that loving and caring mom that my mom was to me, to my girls. I don't want them to hate me, to resent me. I don't want them to be embarrassed by me anymore.
If you want to fail the rest of your life, if you want to be in and out of jail, if you want to possibly lose everything that fucking matters to you, go ahead and go get high. Go ahead. If you want to be happy, you want to freaking get married, like every good part of my life, I wasn't getting high. You know, every good part of my life, I was getting high. And any drug addict will tell you that. If you want to be a flunky, get high. Go ahead and do it. But I've been there, done that, and I wouldn't recommend it.
Sierra did not take life for granted until she started using. It is much stronger than you, and it will win. It will win. Because this doesn't just affect you. It affects everybody in your family for the rest of their lives. That we're the ones stuck here, missing you. And there's help out there. You gotta take it. Don't think you can do it alone, because you can't. And your parents aren't the enemy. They just want the best for you.
It's something I want to deal with for the rest of my life. You know, to be honest, I actually relapsed about a month ago and used for about a month, and I have a week. I had a week clean on Wednesday, and you know, that's something that just shows how powerful this disease is. For me to lose somebody a year ago, not even a year ago, but I'm already using it. That's how powerful this stuff is. And, I'm just gonna try my best to stick with it, because I know it will kill me. And, you know, just something I gotta work at every day. It'll take you to hell and back, and if you're lucky, you know, you'll make it back, you know. It's just not worth it at all, you know. If I could go back, and if I knew what I knew now about this, and if I could go back, I would do it all different. Starting with that first pill, I wouldn't touch it.
We start get our panel members to start making their way. Judge and Ms. Zena, Don, Sheriff. Did Donna make it? Ms. Dobbins? You're up. Hey, Sheriff, make sure Ms. Zena gets right there in the middle. Ms. Zena's going. She's got it. Mr. Eddie, you want to come up? So I told you the film was real, and I told you there was going to be some strong language in it, and it was. But we wanted you to see that, and we wanted you to understand that came. You're seeing people from all over this country that are suffering from addiction, and I think that, I don't want to speak for any law enforcement agency up here, but we understand that we're not going to arrest our way out of this. So we have to do something different. So you guys are going to hear, you heard from people all over the country, but here next I want to introduce to you Miss Julie Waters, and I'm going to hand the microphone to her, and she's going to share her story with you, because you don't have to go very far from Fairhope, Alabama. You just got to go right over to Robertsdale, where Miss Julie Waters lives now, and she's a retired educator here from Baldwin County, and she has a story that she wants to share with you.
Good evening. I can use my teacher voice. If you can't hear me, I'll try to talk louder with this, but if you can't, please let me know. You can't hear me in the back? Okay. My name is Julie Waters. I've lived in Baldwin County over 50 years. My husband and I have raised both of our boys here in Baldwin County. In fact, I'm an alumni of Robertsdale High School, and so are both of my boys. I'm also a retired educator from the Baldwin County Public School System. And I'm going to share a little bit of Jace's story. He and I, during some times of his recovery, were working on ways to help those into recovery. The story's sad, it's very painful, but there's hope for those that are seeking for help in recovery, and Jace was wanting to spread that word. Jace was born June 6, 1986. We were your typical average middle-class family. We loved church. We were involved in our church. We spent vacations every year together. We lived on a farm. We liked that wholesome life that it provided. We had a large extended family where we spent vacations in our special holidays with. Jace loved the outdoors. He loved hunting and he loved fishing, but he especially loved baseball. And Jace played baseball from the age of 5 through his freshman year in college. In fact, Jace's use of drugs started when he was in high school. He was a pitcher on the baseball team, and it was during his senior year that he hurt his back, and he was prescribed by the doctor physical therapy and Lortab. Jace graduated high school with honors. He had academic scholarship and athletic scholarships to college. However, it was during his freshman year at West Alabama that we learned of his drug abuse. Being a parent who was very new to this, I had no association with drugs. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know quite what to do except try to seek help of some sort. Jim and I went to get Jace to get him some help. He was very angry at that. He didn't need help. He didn't have a problem. But he did want to go back to school and finish, and so one of the stipulations, you had to get some kind of help. So he agreed to. And then he went back to South to work on his radiology degree. But during his junior year, he was involved in a drug deal that went very bad, and he had to drop out of school. Lots of horrible things happened in the next 12 years. But during those 12 years, Jace was on a roller coaster ride of treatment centers, sobriety, relapses, and sadly several times in jail. In May of 2015, Jace was arrested again after a relapse, and he was offered a drug court, which he took. Jace was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. In fact, I want to read you a small excerpt from a letter that Jace wrote to me. And Jace was not very big on communication, talking, but he could write, and he spent a lot of his time writing to me his feelings and his thoughts. So I'm going to read a little bit of this to you to let you know how he felt about what this addiction had done to him. This was from 2014. Jace says, and the letter says, I'm just highlighting parts of it. I miss the old Jace that was determined, strong-minded to succeed, and high goals set. But I've lost all faith that I can be that again. I need you and Dad to help me mentally and emotionally to restore my faith that I can do it. I have realized tonight that even though I feel better because I used, that it's a total waste of time and money. It's like a lie to myself because I know this feeling will go away tomorrow and I'll be back at square one. I don't do it to get high. I've come to the conclusion I do it so I don't feel bad anymore. All I know is that I have to be the one to suffer the withdrawals and wait it out. But I need y'all to keep talking to me and encouraging me to look ahead for the day that I finally am better and how much worth my while it will be. I need that encouragement. I need something to break the thoughts of using that I will have. Please help me with it no matter how bad I feel, what I say, how aggravated I get at you or whatever. I hope that it can be over and done with. I know that I've let you down, and I'm truly sorry for it. But I wrote this to you to show you in good faith how bad I want this to be over with. Most people in my shoes would be living for the next fix, but I want to live for so much more than that. I'm tired of feeling lonely, tired of not being productive, tired of not having the relationship with my parents that I want. I've lost 2 great girlfriends that I may never have again. I'm just plain sick and tired of doing nothing. I want the Jace who was happier, determined to do his best at everything, confident and productive. I love both of you more than I show, and I want you to always know that. Jace was offered the drug court program, and he accepted that. He wanted the help. So after he got out of jail, he knew that being back on the streets in the same neighborhood with his friends that he knew was not safe. And so Jace wanted to go into treatment, but he knew that this 30-day, 60-day treatment that he had been in before was not enough for him. He needed a year or more. And he was able to get into a treatment that offered that. While he was in treatment, Jace did very well. I saw glimpses of the old Jace, clean, happy, sober. He was actually a leader in his program. He was helping others that were in recovery. So we began to share his story and help others with what he was going through. He was working on a weight training program, building up his nutrition. After 6 months, that year-long program, a part of it that he was in closed down, and Jace was going to have to leave. So on the recommendation of his boss and those from the treatment centers and others, he was allowed by drug court to leave the state to work with his boss out of state to get him away from friends in the neighborhood that he had been around. That was a huge trigger for him. He did well. He would come back, he'd have to come back for his court, and he would come back. And he was still a happy, productive Jace that I was seeing. The last time that he came back, though, I began to notice a difference. We talked about it, and Jace said, yeah, Mom, I came back and I met up with some of the old friends, and I thought I could handle it. He said, but I'll take care of it. I know what to do. And Jace had the tools that he needed to continue with his recovery. He went back to Arizona to work, and then I got a call from him. Jace had relapsed, and he was arrested in the Yavapai County Jail in Arizona. A coworker called me and said that Jace was very ill, very sick, and that he needed help. And I hadn't realized how fast that had come. So I called Jace, and he said yes, that he was very sick and that he did need help. And I thought, well, maybe we could talk with his lawyer and get him home, get him some help, and he would just turn himself in back in Baldwin County. And he agreed to do that. Well, all this happened on a Friday. Court was closed. The lawyers had gone home, and so we couldn't get help then, or couldn't ask. So we put Jace up in a hotel room for the weekend, and that we would call the lawyer on Monday and work with them on trying to get some help for Jace. Sunday night, Jim and I talked with Jace, brought him up to date, made our plans for how we'd try to get him a bus ride home, get him some help. Told him I'd call him next morning and get it all in order. So I called the next morning, and Jace didn't answer his phone. I called several times. I called his dad, and I said, he's not answering his phone, Jim. And Jim said, I know, I've been trying too. And we both know that when he stops answering his phone, things are not good. Jim called the hotel manager and said, go knock on the door and get my son to answer you, see if he's still there. The hotel manager did. Jace didn't answer his knock. Jim said, go in. You go in. And he did. Jace was not there, but his things were there. He said, but he could hear the shower running. He said, you bang on that door, get my son to answer you. He did. He said, sir, he's not answering. Jim said, call 911. The police came. Jim was on the line. They finally got through and talked with Jim and said, sir, we had to take the hinges off the door. Your son has fallen against the door. He's dead. Those are not the words you want to hear. He's dead. He died of an apparent heroin overdose, a drug he swore he would never use. Oxycontin was the drug that he used the most. But as all progressions, and I've heard it on the films and see it time and time again, it's just a matter of time. You know, Jace was smart, but he made bad choices. Jace was an A student, but he still used drugs. Jace had a bright future ahead of him, but he lost it all in a drug deal. Jace thought he could outsmart the system, but he ended up in jail several times. Jace thought he could beat this habit, control it, but it became an addiction that controlled him. And now my son is dead, and I have only memories. You out here have a second chance, another chance. I just pray and hope that you'll continue to do the next right thing. My son wanted it for himself, and he wanted it for others. He should be here sharing this story. I am. My son passed away May 2nd, 2016. Today is the second anniversary of my son's death from a heroin overdose. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Before we move on, can we just show Mr. and Ms. Waters our appreciation for her coming here and sharing that story? Robertsdale, Alabama, 15 minutes up the road. So our next story is Ms. Hope Zena. She is the Assistant Superintendent for the Baldwin County Board of Education. Hence her being on the panel with Mr. Eddie Tyler, who is the Superintendent of Education. But right now, Ms. Hope has a story, a very personal story that she wants to share with us. Thank you, ma'am.
I think to say that I want to share this story may not be correct, and I hope I can do as eloquent job as Ms. Waters did. I don't like to tell this story because it's still very painful. Judge Wilters has a very persuasive way of talking to me and saying this is good therapy, so I'm not only here for you today, I'm also here for myself. My story is, I think of my story over and over in my mind almost daily. My son passed away May 5th, 2015. It was just 3 years ago. But Rex's story is similar in many ways, but in so many other ways was different. Rex was just like Ms. Watterson you talked about. He was athletic. He played every sport. Rex had good friends. That was one thing that I never picked up on because his friends never changed. I hear a lot of parents say, you know, they started hanging with the wrong crowd, but Rex always hung with a really good crowd. We were members of the First Methodist Church in Gulf Shores. He was an altar boy. And so I never did see that change. In, I'd say, late middle school, maybe early high school, Rex and his friends started experimenting with pot and beer. You know, they would have a camp out in somebody's backyard, and, you know, it would turn into a little more. And the first time one of the parents that was in our group, because we were very involved in everything that our children did, found out about it, we had a big meeting. It was the parents, it was the children. You know, we read them the riot act. You're not going to do this. You're not going to ruin your life. And so, you know, I think they became very good at hiding it. They were a little naive and thought that, you know, but they became very good at hiding it. And so by high school, their drug of choice at that time was Xanax. It was still the marijuana, but it was more of the Xanax that they were getting the prescriptions from. Some of the mothers had prescriptions, and they would, you know, skim off their moms or other places. But by the time Rex got into high school, He knew that, and I guess I could call Rex a functioning addict, because there was never a time that he really could not function. He continued to play sports. His high school, his senior year, is when the Gulf Shores High School opened. And Rex decided to leave Foley, where all his friends were, and he just said, I really need a change. So he left all the friends that he knew. He went to Gulf Shores High School. He graduated. He received a basketball scholarship from Huntington. His first year there at Huntington, he hurt his back, and the team doctor prescribed pain medication, and that started that downhill spiral. He was not able to perform as well as the other athletes that were there, and he was always used to being the top. He won every award you could ever win in high school in sports, and that really depressed him, and the depression led to more of the use. He ended up having to come home. He was dismissed from the team. He came home, and while at home, he got stopped. He had marijuana in his car, and it was a rather large amount, but he was selling it to buy the prescription Xanax and other things he was taking. Rex never stole from me. He never stole from anybody. Rex always worked. He always had a job. He was always working, but every penny that he made went to the whatever drug he was taking. We already knew Judge Wilters because we went to church together, but we were introduced to Judge Wilters on a whole nother level at drug court, which Rex fully participated in. He had bumps along the way. I can remember the first time he had to go to jail. I was devastated. All I could think about was that was my baby, my child, that was having to spend, I think it was a week or weekend the first time. But as the drug court went on, like I said, he would go a while, but he would always mess up. It would be when he would have a test, it would be the Xanax or the marijuana, or even sometimes alcohol. I can remember Thanksgiving, he being in jail, and all the family was there. But he would always rebound. He would always go back to the job he had. Rex had good jobs. During this time, he was able to go online and finish his degree from Huntington. Rex ended up graduating with a business degree from Huntington College. He walked on the field at graduation for Huntington. After graduating from Huntington, Rex moved to Birmingham, and he entered a school of law. It was very rigorous. He really had to study. Had a very nice girlfriend that moved there with him, but his opioid addiction was growing. He would come home, and we had local doctors that would just write him a prescription because everybody knew Rex. Everybody knew him. Friends that were doctors were writing him prescriptions anytime he wanted them. Sometimes he'd give them $20. Sometimes he would be able to use, because he was still on my insurance, just give him a copay. Or sometimes they would just give them to him, and he would, take them somewhere and have them filled. So it was like, everybody was enabling him to continue this. It really got bad when he was in Birmingham, when he was away from home. I can only say I saw Rex in the state that you see these people on TV once in probably a 10-year period that he stayed away from our family. He didn't want anybody to know how bad it was. He was able to just stay away from us. And, I would know when he was living in Birmingham, there would be days that, I couldn't reach him on the phone, but it was always, I was working. He worked for a law firm while he was in Birmingham. He did not finish law school. He dropped out of law school, but he got a job as head of house at a country club in Birmingham. Very high-paying job. Worked there for months. So like I said, Rex's story was so different because he would work hard. He was able to function. He didn't have to steal, but he was always able to get the opioids that he needed. He continued. I think that the spiral, the girlfriend, like I said, was a very nice girl, and she took all she could. She tried to get him to stop. She would call me, tell me the things that was happening. I would go visit. Rex hated more than anything in the world to disappoint me. That was the thing that he would always say. There was nothing that hurt him more than to disappoint me. So he, like I said, it was years that this went on, this spiral. I think the last, he got fired from Birmingham. He always would have, like I said, really good jobs, and he would get fired. He would be top salesman he worked for a boat brokerage and would sell yachts and sell more than anybody on the lot. He, like I said, he was head of house. He would manage restaurants and would have 20, 30 people under him. But it was always that addiction that made him fail. He like I said, he tried. He was an overachiever, but that addiction always came back to make him fail. When he lost the job in Birmingham, his girlfriend left, and so I think at that point Rex realized that he was really ill. So he came home, and the last month of his life, he lived with me. And for the first time, Rex really was truly honest, because there was always the excuses. There was always this, oh, I was just doing this, or no, that was not that, because he stayed away enough that it was just he never went to rehab. It was just always, I can handle it, it's going to be okay, and he functioned. Like I said, the last month of Rex's life, he moved home and lived with me, and I have never seen anyone so ill in all my life. Every day that I left to go to work, I was sure that he would not be alive when I got home. And sometimes I would try to call just to check on him during the day, and other times I would just wait till I got home to see what was going to happen. He lost weight. I don't know how anybody can throw up and have diarrhea and not eat anything and make it, there would be like a 2-week period that he didn't eat anything. So after about a month of literally going through that, it was like one day I came home and he said, I ate a piece of toast today. And so, and during this time, he was not able to get anything. I lived way out in nowhere's land in Alberta. He had no way to get anywhere. I knew there was nobody coming there, because you can tell when they take it. All the illness is gone, the sickness is gone. They feel better. But that month was rough. Like I said, at the end of that month, it was like we saw the light at the end of the tunnel. He was able to eat again. He started exercising some. But during that time, like I said, when he talked about how honest he was, he said that the pain was so incredible that the times that he was off, he would go 6 months sometimes. He actually went a year one time clean, and he said he was walking down the street, and all of a sudden the pain in his brain was so bad that he fell to his knees on the street in Birmingham, and he said, I thought I had a brain tumor. He said, I've never felt anything like it. And he said, until I could get those pain medications, he said, the pain is so bad you can't handle it. You feel like you're going to die, and the only thing that will make it better is to get that. And he said, no matter how long you go, that nagging or that pain will come back. If it's a year, if it's 6 months, if it's 6 weeks. And that was the first time he had been really honest and talked to me about that. So, like I said, we made it that month. He started feeling better, gained some weight back. Wind Creek Casino was just opening and getting started in Atmore. He applied for one of the executive jobs, and Rex is, I say, an overachiever, but I mean, he was like, well, I can be an executive here. I'm like, well, have you ever done anything like that? No, but I can do it. Very, very, very confident in himself. So he applied. Felt like he'd had a really good interview. I was in Birmingham at a conference, and he called me that night to tell me that he had felt like he'd had a good interview, but he said, I'm just not sure what I'm going to do if I don't get it. Because that depression of failure for somebody who had always been successful in everything they did, grades, athletics, the depression also worked on him, and he couldn't take anything for it. So he said, I just don't know what I'm going to do if I don't get that job. And I said, well, Rex, we'll do what we always do. We'll figure something out. We'll work something out. We'll fix it. We'll always be able to fix it. So the next morning, I was coming home, and my father called me. Rex had gone, my parents live in Atmore, and he had gone to spend the night with them. And my dad called me and he said, are you going to come by here? I need you to come by here on your way home. And I said, well, I was coming by there anyway. Well, before I got there, I found out, or my daughter found out on Facebook by the paramedic who had answered the call at my parents' house that night that Rex had passed away. So my daughter called me as I was driving and said, Mom, Rex is dead. And I said, Holly, that can't be true. I just talked to him last night. I just talked to your grandfather. They're expecting me to come by. But what my dad didn't want me to know is that he had already passed away because he knew I was going to be driving. And I said to Holly, that's not true, and whatever's happened, I can fix it when I get there. But when I got there, I couldn't fix it. He was already gone. His body was already gone. And of course, they had to do an autopsy. And so for the next, seemed like forever, basically it was a week, I still didn't want to believe it because I didn't see him. And the first time I got to see him was at his funeral. Over 1,000 people came to Rex's funeral because I've counted and I've looked at that book. Every person that came through had a story to tell about how special Rex made them feel. Everybody that came through said, I was Rex's best friend. Every single person, and that's the kind of person Rex was. He made everybody in the room feel like they were the most special person. And when that lady was talking about how angry she was, I couldn't be angry because after he told me that it's the worst thing that can ever, the pain is the worst thing that can happen to you. And at that point, I knew that he was out of pain and that he never was going to be as long as he was alive. It's that bad. And for the children in the room, all that I can say is he took Suboxone. He did different things. But that's not going to make a difference. The only thing that's going to make a difference is to never, ever start, because once you do, it's got you. And basically, Rex went out that night in Atmore and couldn't find any pain pills or whatever, and bought some heroin from someone, and it was bad, and went back to my parents' house and shot up, and basically his heart exploded. But it, like I said, the first time I saw him after that was at his funeral, and then I realized it was true. But like I said, I run that story through my head almost daily of anything that could have been done different. But it's a hard story to tell. But like I said, if any one person in this room can just not ever start, it would be worth me sitting here and telling you that story.
Thank you, Ms. Cena. Can we show her our gratitude, folks? We're sitting in Fairhope, Alabama, and we've heard the story out of Robertsdale, Alabama, and we just heard the story out of Gulf Shores. There's no place it doesn't touch. So our last story is Miss Christy Wells, and she is a recovery addict and is currently working with the Drug Education Council now and shares her story. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to her, and as soon as she completes her story, we'll go into the question and answer portion. So, Christy.
Thank you. My name is Christy Wells, and I'm not here for anybody else. I'm not here for my agency. I am a person in long-term recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. It's a miracle that I'm standing here, and I promise you all that. I had a background, we all talk about the background, and, our backgrounds can be so different, it's unbelievable, but the disease is the very same for all of us. And I was brought up in a home, Christian people, went to church, went to Briarwood Christian School in Birmingham, and you know, I knew what right and wrong were, and I knew, you know, drinking was bad, and I even knew enough to know that genetics plays a big part in addiction and alcoholism. And because my father was an alcoholic who very, very sadly died from that. He was a military veteran who never got better. People didn't understand, and we didn't know what to do about helping him. And because I did know that much, I knew not to drink. So I didn't start drinking or partying as a teenager like most people actually do. I had an accident. That part of my story is very textbook. I was married. I was born into a very poor family, and they taught me about work and the ethic of work. And I was told two things by my mother. One is, there are two things I want for you to be in this world, and they're deal breakers. And I said, what's that? And she says, never be unkind to other people. And I believe that now. The other one is, do not ever become a liar. And that was very important to me until a little later in my life. I went to college, I was educated, and I got a scholarship. We didn't have a bunch of money, but we had enough. And so I met my then husband when I was 15 years old, and we got married. I was 19 years old. By the time I was 26, we had 3 absolutely beautiful children whom I loved all the way through my addiction and who I love more than my own life right now. And unfortunately for my 3 children, they had to experience my addiction every day of their lives. And that is the thing now for the rest of my life that I have to live with, and it's very difficult for me. And I can't imagine what it was like for them. But backing up, I had a very severe back injury, like a lot of people do, and so they put me on Lortab back in the day. And I remember I was in the hospital first and had surgery, so they sent me home with my Lortab. And I got home, and I got a glass of water, and I took my 1 pill every 6 hours like it was prescribed. I took my first pill, and about 15 minutes into that, once it had time to work, I knew at that moment I had never felt so awesome before that time, and I've never felt that awesome again in my entire life. That was addiction for me. The second that drug hit my body and was digested in my body, I was an addict right that moment. I coasted along and functioned for a little while until 1 pill didn't do anything, and then it went to 2 pills, not every 6 hours, but every 4. And the effect wouldn't last as long, and the pills weren't doing as well. And going forward, I'll tell you, at the end of my addiction, the end of my active addiction, I went from taking 1 pill every 6 hours for pain to taking 70 Lortab 10s every single day of my life. Did I get high anymore? No. I was trying not to go through the withdrawals because, believe you me, when I tell you, I tried everything I knew to get clean and sober, at least for the sake of my children. I did. And I went through withdrawal, and I would try again, and I would try again to go through withdrawal, but I had 3 little kids to raise. I couldn't be sick for 3 or 4 weeks in the bed, vomiting and diarrhea and not able to move and scaring them to death, so I went right back to it. And because at that time my husband, who is still a physician in Mobile, I had very easy access to anything I wanted. And so I went around to all our friends who were doctors, hurting, really can't stand it. So they're writing prescriptions and I'm filling them and no big deal until people were watching me. And so, and this is a 15-year saga that's going to be condensed into a very few minutes, but I'll say, some things that happened with my children and with me. You saw on the screen where they talked about people who use opiates often don't stop there. They have to add another drug or more. And that's what happened to me. Because I was taking 70 pills a day, I would nod off. and fall asleep or whatever. So my bright idea was I'm going to take amphetamines now. So Adderall, I'm throwing it in, and I was taking 12 to 15 Adderall a day on top of my 70 pills. Needless to say, my health was terrible. And I can tell you now that if you've been, and most of us know an addict or someone in our lives or our families, but when you see people like those women on the screen and that young man and those who did have children, we love our children. We love our children in the midst of our addictions. We love our children, but we don't know what to do. Because the problem in the whole country and actually the whole world is that we think this is a moral failing of someone, and it is not. It is substance use disorder, and it is not who I am. I am not substance use disorder. I am not in active addiction, and I don't choose to identify myself that way any longer. I will say addiction is not curable. It is a chronic disease. It is a progressive disease. It is treatable and manageable, though, which is the awesome part for me. But needless to say, when you need 70 pills a day, there's no doctor in the entire world that would do that and write you those kind of pills. I'd been to everybody I knew. They had cut me off. I'd been fired from everywhere, and in fact, had gone to several doctors and said, look, I have a problem. Please help me. I'm begging you to help me. I don't know how to get off of this. I can't do it. And they fired me. Every one of them. No one offered me anything. And I think that's a shame. And I'm not blaming all doctors. We have some awesome people in our community that take care of us. But if that's the solution, there's one of our problems. There's not one solution to this problem either. We can't blame it on law enforcement. We can't blame it on just the addicts. We can't blame it on the doctors. But what we don't do very well, and what we're trying to do here, is to put together a bunch of people to work together and at least make a dent in this situation. And I knew I was being a crappy mother. I knew that I was physically present, but I wasn't emotionally present for my children. Why? Because I had to keep up my notebook, which was almost a foot thick, with all my aliases that I used at every pharmacy, Mobile, Baldwin County, in northern Florida. And I went into all these pharmacies. I began to forge prescriptions. And so, big old surprise, I got arrested. And the first time it was sort of like, well, you know, you're just going to do this little program, it's going to be fine, and it was. And then I began to do the same thing because I could not stop. I knew better, I wanted better, but I was so ashamed of what I was doing, and I was so ashamed of what it would look like to my friends and my family that I didn't go out and really look for help because I didn't know how, and I didn't know it was available. And so, you know, one thing I like to do with my life now, because I shouldn't be here, and that is to say that the stigma of addiction shouldn't be a stigma at all. It's an illness, and we should be able to openly say, I have a problem and I need some help, and we should be able to get it, whether we have $1 million or whether we have $0. And I didn't know that. So, moving forward, I knew, you know, some of us in active addiction and afterward, we talk about what's called a perfect storm. Yes, our gene pool was bad, and yes, it was terrible. But also, I was living in a situation where my children had a half-assed mother, and I was a half-assed wife, and I was gone. And so I decided that I needed to, my children deserved a better mother, and they did. They really did. But I decided that my suicide was what was necessary for me to eliminate myself from my family so that they wouldn't be bothered with me ever again. And I was in a coma for quite a while. I deliberately researched pills, and I went down to Louisiana, and I overdosed a very carefully calculated set of pills. Plus, I was already very ill. And so, flown to UAB, the coma happened. I did the same thing that happened in the movie, called my dope dealer, When I could speak, when I finally got off a ventilator and said, bring me some dope, drove from Mobile, brought it to me, shot it into me, and there I was. That's what addiction is. That's the difference between a normal person and me. And so I came back down here, and guess what I did? I went right back to using. And I was arrested subsequent times and taken to jail. And my rock bottom was not going to jail. My rock bottom was when my children came to visit me. I was in withdrawal. I had vomit all over the front of my body. They took me down the hallway, and my 3 children looked at me in horror in that glass. And I will never forget that as long as I live. And there's some people I want to thank, because I promise you, if I hadn't been arrested and prosecuted, I would have committed suicide, and I know it to be true. And so there's some people sitting here who dealt with me. Bob Wilters, I hated him. I did. He knows it. We've already. But I hated his guts because he was so mean to me, and he sentenced me. And I was going to get 10 years in prison, and I thought that's what I had, and he allowed me later to go to treatment. Thank God. And if it hadn't been for people staying after me up in the balcony, Stephanie Hollinghead stayed on my case. She knew something was wrong in my home. I hated her guts too. And now these people are some of the dearest people in my life, and I'm so grateful for police and DEA and law enforcement. And we may hate them when we're in the middle of it, but if we do what we need to do and get humble and get into recovery, then that's what our lives can look like. And so I believe that God allowed me to live through that coma and through my life so that I can come out and be a part of things like this and share that there is hope. I don't care how bad it is. There's hope and there's resources. And I want you to know that as just a person that lives right here in Fairhope with the rest of you, I'll do anything I can do to give you some resources and help. And I just want to thank everybody that's here for listening and for paying attention to all of us. And I really congratulate these 2 ladies, because my biggest fear in my whole life is that my one child, who is an addict, that I'm going to be telling the same story that these 2 ladies tell. I can barely listen. And I need to think that all of you are listening for your family and your loved ones so that we can do something before that happens. And I just thank you so much for your attention, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the 3 stories tonight. You saw the video. I promised you it was going to be real. I think we've delivered that tonight, and we're at the question and answer portion. Just so you know, I want you to understand, if you're high school students in the audience and you have to sign in tonight to get credit for something, extra credit, your school offered you a test grade or out of uniform day or something like that, and you have to sign in, see Miss Stacy Jesse. Stacy, please raise your hand. Stacy's our community outreach coordinator with FBI. She has a sign-in sheet. So after this is over with, see her out by the table, and you can get signed in to get your credits. So you know who you're dealing with up here on the stage. You have Sheriff Hoss Mack. Everybody knows the sheriff. You have the superintendent, Mr. Eddie Tyler. Donna Dobbins is the first assistant for the United States Attorney's Office, where I worked for 10 years before going to the FBI. You've already heard from Miss Zena. You know, everybody knows now District Attorney Bob Wilters. And Don DeSalvo is our resident agent in charge for DEA. I want to recognize my Assistant Special Agent in charge with the FBI, Brett Kirby. If you have any questions whatsoever after the program, feel free to reach out to some of us or one of us or all of us or everybody. But we've reached the question and answer portion. You've heard these personal stories. You know, we already know, everybody in this room knew that this wasn't just a national problem. This is a Fairhope problem. And when DEA and the Baldwin County Sheriff came to me and said, hey, can we put this together and can we put it together quickly? I said, yes, we can do that. And we did it here, and we chose here for a reason. So now that you know who's on the stage, who wants to open it up with a question or a solution or anything that you want to contribute to this discussion Yes, ma'am. Hey, let me bring this to you.
Hey, thanks for sharing all the stories. I appreciate it. My question is, how many, in Baldwin County, how many inpatient 12-step programs are available that do accept insurance or do not?
So I'm going to keep that question to Mike Cook with the Drug Education Council, who is right here. Mike, can you stand up?
I'll let Christy answer that.
Christy, not Mike.
Apparently it's not going to be Mike. I'm sorry, no, but having been in the system, and I used to be the executive director at the Shoulder, and I also I've worked in a women's treatment center here. Right now in Baldwin County, we have absolutely 0 residential treatment programs for women whatsoever. That is my goal of my life, is to make sure we get one, and soon. There's nothing. So there are some outpatient programs, and there's a program called the Shoulder Treatment Center in Spanish Fort, which is a residential program with 40 beds for men. That is self-pay. Those people work and pay their own fees, so families don't have to go into their poverty and deal with all this, because most of us are in poverty when we end addiction. So a lot of us don't have insurance. There are programs in Mobile and such that, Bradford is a program that takes insurance, but their residential program is up in Warrior. But we don't have a lot here in Baldwin County, and that's a real shame, because if we could have a direct diversionary program coming from an arrest and take them straight to treatment somewhere, that would make a big difference. But it takes funding, and it takes understanding, and a lot of support from the community. So unfortunately, that's the bleak outlook for a lot of us, who try to refer people, and there's not enough resources. But Drug Education Council has a table outside, and they can offer some other information and options for both of these 2 counties, Mobile and Baldwin County.
Yes, got it. Who's got our next question? Solution, answer, story?
Up top.
Yes, sir.
I'm Alan Cox, and I've dealt with a child that's been dealing with this disease 25 plus years. And I want to say first, I admire the parents and children that came today to listen about this disease. But the one thing I want to just tell all of you here is we've got plenty of people in this county in South Alabama that want to help. But you got to go ask for help with this disease. It's not something you can fix yourself or with your best friend or a parent that has no experience in this can handle. You've got to go ask for help. And there's people that will help, and thank y'all for the ones that will. But if you run into this question or this disease or this issue, go find some third party that can help you, because it's going to take help, folks. Thank you.
Tommy, there's a question up top.
So if you will speak loudly, because I don't know that I can make it up there. Thank you, ma'am. On that suspicion for you parents in the room, I'm going to hand the mic to Mike Cook, and he's going to tell you a way that you can either put that suspicion to bed or confirm it.
One thing that we offer at the Drug Education Council, we do anonymous drug testing. Not tied to law enforcement. We don't use a name. We use a little red ticket. And so if parents If it's somebody, maybe friends have changed, suspicion, if you want to know, we can let you know. It's free of charge. If y'all, any parent wants to talk about that, y'all come see me. We partnered with the school board, and we've got that information out. So if any parent wants to know, we'll let you know. You see me at the table. I'll give you my card. We set up an appointment. You come in. It's absolutely free. And again, it'll just get us started on the right path.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else have a, yes ma'am, let me get the mic to you. You got one, Sherry? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Liz Luther, and I was born in Mobile, but I actually lived in Robertsdale because we didn't have a hospital, I don't think, in Baldwin County when I was born. But when I went to school at Robertsdale, there was a few things that happened there that influenced me not to ever want to do drugs. And that one of them was we actually had some drug addicts come to a assembly and talk about what it did to them. And just hearing someone who actually did it, like listening to the people in this film that we watched, and from people who talked, I was impressed enough with that to say I would never want to do that. And then there was a representative, was it Dickinson? Does that sound familiar? Somebody from back in the 60s or something for Baldwin County? Bill Dickinson? Yeah, I actually wrote a letter to him and asked him, is there any information that you can send me to share at my school about drugs? And he sent me cases and cases of pamphlets that talked about drugs, and I distributed them to all the classes at school. But just reading it was enough to impress on me that that was not something I ever wanted to do. Unfortunately, in my life, my daughter got involved with drugs. She's still alive. And then my granddaughter got into drugs too. But I never chose to, so I didn't model it, but I always had to be there to help support them to try to get help and to get over it. It's one of those things, though, that for me right now, I have some anger inside of me about the thing about opiates, is why the distributors of those, we're talking about the legal distribution, and the doctors who write the medication, and how the addict can trick and get so many aliases and then no one can track them because there's a problem there. And I always hear that thing, follow the money. So how much money do our doctors make from writing these prescriptions that creates the addict? I mean, how are they any different than an illegal dealer on the street? But the other thing is the distribution of it. I think that this became a big deal when we started, whenever we were getting into the whole thing about insurance and how we started shutting down treatment centers because of funding. It wasn't important. Or were addicts just acceptable losses? You get involved in it, we don't care. You can die. So it's very personal to me as far as how do you impress upon children at a young age that this is not the way to go. And if you're feeling loneliness and pain, you need to open up to someone and try to find another solution. Because obviously, from listening to the film and the people talking, you're not going to find anything good out of that. You're going to be hurting even worse.
Thank you, ma'am. So part of that was a question about the doctors. I'm going to kick that to Don DeSalvo, who's the resident in charge of DEA, and they have worked some really large cases in conjunction with the FBI, the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office, U.S. Attorney's Office, the DA's office. So this is a partnership truly here in Mobile and Baldwin County when I say that. But Don, can you speak to any of the things that she asked about, especially with the doctors and things?
Yes. So this problem we're having in this country is about 20 years in the making. It's been percolating for 20 years. So right now is the perfect storm. So you look at Vietnam War, 58,000 soldiers killed. In 2016, we had 64,000 drug overdoses, and it's not getting any better. So it's not one, there's culpable parties all over the place. There's drug cartels, there's the pharmaceutical industry, there's physicians, There's medical professionals, not just the physicians, the staff, all these different parties, and there's money behind it, obviously. And so the drug overdoses are mainly caused because the country is addicted to opiates, pills. And so when we start putting the squeeze on the physicians, well, the drug cartels move in, and it's economics. They're undercutting the price of the pills. So what they're doing is the heroin, which is what they're selling to replace, it's cheaper, they're mixing it with fentanyl, which is coming from China, chemical companies in China. And they're mixing it, it's deadly because it's cheaper. So this perfect storm is happening because of all those different factors. Actually today there's an article on the front page of the New York Times. It's called The Drug Hustlers, I think. And it's on the front page of the online. And it mentions part of that article is about Mobile and about a case that we had here and about the pharmaceutical industry, how it connects to the physicians and the incentives that are given for the physicians to write a certain prescription. And in this case was fentanyl. So we're addressing, all of us up here are addressing all these different little interconnecting factors. But the bottom line is, when you're a kid and you're taking a pill for fun to get high, it's risky. When you go to a doctor and you say you have a shoulder injury, like we've heard here, and I hear that all the time from people that are addicts now that go for a minor injury, and when I ask them, well, what did you get? What was the script that was written for you? He said, well, the first time I didn't even know what he gave me. He just wrote something. I went to the pharmacy and I just took it. And as we heard these stories, it snapped. It could be that first time you try it. So you have the right to talk to the doctor and ask them. If the doctor's not giving you information, you might want to go to a different doctor. And so there's some responsibility on the patient's part. But so with the parents and where the person who's the patient, ask for an alternative. Is there something? Can I have some physical therapy? Can I have ibuprofen or something like that? Because these are dangerous. And so the pill users most pill users, opioid pill users, never in a million years think they're going to take needle and shoot that in their arm and heroin. But when they can't afford the pill or when they can't find it, they always go to the heroin. And when they take the heroin, it's almost always mixed today with fentanyl, and it's very deadly.
Is it true that I thought I just recently read that for some people using medicinal marijuana actually relieves some of these symptoms
Well, again, with what I'll just say about this, the marijuana industry, it's the same thing. It's all about the money. If you heard these stories up here, and I've been doing this for 25 years, most of the addicts, almost all of them, start with marijuana. And so if you look at, there's a study that was done since marijuana has been legalized, states, federal it's illegal. In Colorado, look at what has happened in Colorado. That state is on a bad course. And, I would be very leery of, look at the science with marijuana. And what I would suggest is it's probably not a good replacement for an opioid. I'm sorry?
So what do you suggest?
I would suggest going to a doctor and going to treatment and talking to someone who's a specialist in that.
So, Sheriff, for you and Mr. Tyler, could y'all speak just a little bit about some of the things that she was talking about in the schools, like directly toward the efforts that you guys are putting in directly into the schools with your school resource officers and all of the programs that Mr. Tyler has headed up since he's become the superintendent to try to curb those things in our schools?
Well, I'll just talk on the one, and I'll let the superintendent talk about the many programs that they have, because there are numerous in our schools. But, this whole thing, we talk about school resource officers came up, and most people think we talk about school resource officers because of school shootings. And why that has also prompted the conversation, but all of the chiefs of police in Baldwin County, we have 2 of them here in the audience tonight, and we've all adopted the policy of a school resource officer. And that's more than it's not a security officer. These are people that are specifically trained to interact with children. They teach courses. They participate in school programs. I've seen some of our SROs act as advocates for the child when they get sent to the principal's office. They do different things. And probably some of the most highly respected law enforcement officers in all of Baldwin County are school resource officers, because they have the respect. And so we believe the school resource officer concept is boiled down in several things, but one of those concepts is the only true prevention is intervention. And so what we try to do is we try to intervene, and we do that by having that school resource officer on the campus. And they get to know the children, they get to know the principals, they get to know the cafeteria workers, they get to know the bus drivers, and they get to know everybody. And so they work every day in that environment to try to intervene, and through that intervention cause a prevention. And so that's why we're really on board trying to increase our number of school resource officers. We have the most that we've ever had in Baldwin County now. I believe we're up to about 24 that we have, and that's a combination of the sheriff's office and several of our police departments. We now have a full-time SRO on every high school campus. But I'm a numbers guy. One of the numbers that you saw on the screen tonight, and this is very important, and if you have a chance, go back and look at this video. Prove me wrong if you think you can. But in the stories that you heard tonight of the young people, to a fault, there's one, to a fault, every one of them said they started using drugs at age 11. That's the target group. My generation, it was high school. This generation, it's upper elementary to lower middle. And so that's the group that we've got to really target if we're going to have a prevention. Coach?
Thank you, Sheriff. I think what Sheriff Mack was talking about, too, I'll echo, is relationship building. To have these men and women in our schools is priceless. I was at a pre-K drawing today at the Loxley office. I was there for another reason, but I was talking to Deputy Spaller, and a mother came out of the auditorium with her little pre-K child, and of course we said hey, and Deputy Spaller said hey, and the child kept walking, and the mother stopped and said, oh, they said, hey, that's a police officer. Well, the boy stopped in his tracks and turned around and was just amazed. So, I don't think you can start early enough with building relationships with law enforcement and people that can have a positive influence on the lives of these young men and women. I have Patrice Davis here, who is one of our supervisors, and Patrice works tirelessly with our counselors. She works with our peer helpers. She works with our at-risk. She has all these professional developments that she does, and if Patrice wants to say something about some of those that we talk about with our bullying, with our drugs, with the programs we have for young people to reach out to. Anthony Sampson, our Director of Prevention and Support, works with Patrice. And you're right, we have a multitude of programs, some that we have instituted over the years and some that are mandated. That sometimes when parents are saying, what are you doing about this? What are you doing about that? Well, a lot of these things are mandated and we have to do them. Some of the things parents don't really like. They get a little bit of opposition to them, but some of these things we're mandated to do. We try to do them in the proper way. But a lot of things Patrice comes up with our teachers and our administrators about what programs can we present to children. You were talking about speakers coming in when you were in school, and that's still a very powerful thing. It's just getting the right speaker, because sometimes you get the wrong speaker and the kids are going to glaze over, you're going to lose them, but if you get the right speaker, you know, it can have a big impact on these young people. But Therese might want to speak to some of our programs, and Anthony's here too that supports it.
Good evening. I think one of the major accomplishments that we have in the school system are the numerous partnerships that we have with different agencies throughout Baldwin County. We have partnerships with Drug Education Council, so that you've heard them talk about the anonymous drug testing that they do, and the fact that that is of no charge to parents, because oftentimes people want to know, well, where can I go? And even what we may think is a nominal cost for something may be an extreme expense for parents. So that's one of our partnerships. We have partnerships with Alta Point, where we have mental health therapists that will come into the school and work and talk with our students. And certainly we need more of them, because just like we have this opioid crisis in the United States, mental health illness is yet another issue that we are facing. So we need more of these individuals. But I always say we have to be receptive to what we do have, and we have to start with something. You heard the young lady in the balcony talk about the bridge that comes in and works with our students in high school that may have substance abuse type problems. And again, all of these entities are coming in, they're working with the students, they're working with their parents, they're offering any number of resources. All of us have been around long enough that we have had Red Ribbon Week. And we know that we talk about during that time, just say no to drugs, alcohol, tobacco, but it's something that we try to incorporate throughout the school year. And many of our counselors, our social workers, we have 2 of them here tonight, they're constantly bringing in speakers, bringing in different people to talk with our students about some of these particular issues that we may have. Our superintendent talked about other programs that we are asked to implement, and I know this is not the focus for that tonight as such, but we have child sex abuse curriculum that we're teaching with our students. We have to focus on suicide. So all of these are issues that we're dealing with, and one of the things that we have found is that sometimes something as simple as being hooked on drugs, whatever it may be, can also lead to some of these other things. Another partnership that we have is with our Jennifer Claire Moore Foundation and our executive director there, Allison Faircloth, where we have peer helpers that are provided in each of our 45 schools. Because one of the things that we may all know as adults, children don't want to talk to us. They feel as though you're old, you don't know what you're talking about, but sometimes they are receptive to sharing information with their peers and opening up with their peers. And those who are peer helpers know that if information is shared that may be something they need to share with an adult, then they know the proper channel and mechanisms to do that. So as a school system, we're constantly trying to build our resources and work with various people in the community so that we can help steer our children from going down the wrong path.
I just, if I could, just to end up on that, and I hope parents and citizens in Baldwin County understand, I've been in this for 42 years, and I can pick up the phone anywhere in this county. I can call Chief Pettis, I can call David, I can call Judge Wilters, I can call Sheriff Mack, I can call any chief in any of our municipalities and ask a question or ask for assistance, and it's like it's done, or we will do that. The partnership, I hope parents understand, that we have with law enforcement and our district attorney's office in Baldwin County is second to none that I have been associated with, especially in the 3rd largest school system in the state of Alabama that has such diversity from north to south. And I just hope that our parents understand that it's invaluable what they do. I picked up the phone today and called one of the deputies and said, look, I want to send you an email. Could you give me some guidance on this? And when I saw him later, he had already talked to the parent. Based on my email, he called that parent. Didn't even tell me he called her, which I'm glad he did. So it's priceless for the relationship. So I think anytime you see them, thank them.
You're talking about partnerships too. If you have a 16 and 17-year-old in the Baldwin County school system, thanks to the Baldwin County Board of Education, Ms. Patrice and Anthony here, they sent out the FBI Teen Academy, which is coming up in June. And you have to write an essay. This is not just send your name in and I'm in. You have to write an essay. There are certain requirements of GPA and things like that, but it's in the middle of June, and Ms. Stacy Jesse, our community outreach coordinator, heads that up here. It's a 2-day program, and when they leave there, They have seen just about everything that the FBI can do. It's a really good program. So I want to share those things with you too, and kind of give us a plug, because we want your kids to be interested in the things that we're doing, and we want to show them, because so many times they think law enforcement's a closed circle. It's not. We want them there. Now, Judge Wilters, you were about to say something earlier, and I cut you off, and I'm sorry. Can you and Miss Donna talk a little bit about...
Don't worry, I'll remember that time.
I know. I know. Can you and Ms. Donna talk a little bit about, from the prosecutor's side, about what you're seeing briefly, and how you're having to handle these things, and the uptick in the occurrence?
Well, first of all, one of the things that we started back in 2007 was a drug court. We finally realized that we couldn't arrest ourselves out of this. We couldn't put enough people in prison for long enough for it to do any good. So we had to try to change something. And drug court is a treatment-oriented court, not a punishment-oriented court. However, when you're dealing with addicts, parents, please pay attention. Addicts will lie to you, even when it would be in their best interest to tell you the truth. They will lie. So the first thing you got to know in dealing with them is they're going to lie to you. Second thing, they want to be in charge of their treatment. That way they can work the system, they can manipulate it. And they've been through enough treatment programs by the time we would get them that they knew the answers to the questions that we were going to ask. So they want to be in control. You cannot let them be in control and know that they're going to lie to you. And the hardest thing that a parent will ever do is to ignore that phone call from their child when the child calls from jail and says, "Mommy, let me out of here. This is a hellhole. This is horrible. This is terrible. Let me out. Get me out. Bond me out." And for a mother or father to say, "No, you need to stay there for a while." That's the hardest thing you will do, but it will be the best thing you can do for your child. Know they're going to lie to you. Do not believe what they're telling you. And when they want to be in control, when they want to pick the treatment program, no, don't do it. You pick the treatment program. You talk to enough people where you can get the right program for them. And it is tough. It is hard. But that's the only way you are going to be able to help them, is to give them some discipline. They've got to learn discipline, because in drug court we would have them for at least 2 years, and the maximum time we would have them would be 5 years. After that, they're out of drug court. They're not on probation anymore. Their case has been null-prossed. It's over with. It's done. They don't have a felony record. But then they're on their own. And they have got to make those right choices, right decisions. And if they don't have the discipline to say no, then we're going to end up with bad results. Now, it's tough. I knew Rex. I'd known Rex for 10, 15 years. I knew Jace. Jace went through drug court. I put Christy in jail several times. She was a little hard-headed. But you've got to be tough. It's tough love. And it is hard. But you've got to do it. I mean, we worked with Jace, we worked with Rex. And we missed something. We missed something. And that's hard. You know, Rex is a good kid, a real good kid. Watched him grow up. Loved watching him play basketball. Watched him in church. Jace, I didn't know for that long, but I knew him when he was in drug court. Good kid. Good. And we missed something. Something that we could have done differently, we missed it. And as a result, we got some grieving families. And the world is a worse off place because these kids aren't here. But you cannot be easy on them. You can't be easy. Parents, get in your kid's business. You're the parent. And if your kid says, no, I ain't letting you look at my phone, fine. Pay for your own dang phone. Take it away from them. You're a parent, act like a parent. Your kid is a kid. Their brain ain't fully functioning, so they don't make good decisions anyway. And when you throw drugs and alcohol in there, you know, they really make stupid decisions. Some of you kids out there, you're sitting back there going, what does he know? He don't know nothing. I understand that. 20% of the kids I talk to about drugs and alcohol won't give one fat rat's behind about what I say. They won't care about what Miss Zana says. They won't care about what Miss Waters said because they're smarter than everybody else. And I can't do anything for those kids. They're not going to listen to me. They're not going to listen to you. And those are the kids we might lose. But it's job security for me. It's job security for law enforcement. And if you are a kid and you got a friend like that, you got a friend that's smarter than everybody else, that it's never his fault, you need to get away from that kid. You need to find another friend. Because when it gets bad and it's his dope that's in the car with you, do you really think he's going to say, officer, don't arrest my friend. It's not his dope, it's all mine. That ain't going to happen. He's going to say, I don't know nothing about it, it's his dope. Or her dope. So if you got a friend like that, get rid of him. If your kid has a friend like that, encourage that kid to stay away from them. But parents, be a parent. Get in your kid's business. Look in their room. Search their room if you have to, because if they're doing something, you're going to find the evidence in their room, in their car, on their phone. So don't depend on us up here to do it. You got to do it.
Thank you, Judge. Are there any questions? Do we have any? Yes, sir. Let me give this to you.
Okay. One of the things we've seen on the presentation that sometimes kids get the pills free from friends. What we do in Baldwin County with the Baldwin County Community Alliance, and also in Mobile, we have the take-back boxes. So if you have any prescription pills in your house that you're not using anymore, you can take them to your local police departments and we will dispose of the pills. We had the DEA take-back the 28th of this month. Alberta collected 112 pounds of pills, if I'm not mistaken, for that one day. We had people to bring pills in gallon Ziploc bags full. Fairhope Police Department last year, if I'm not mistaken, collected 1,362 pounds of pills. The program is really working good. It's working good to the point where we're having a difficult time disposing of the pills, and we are in need of incinerators. So if anybody up there have any extra funds left, see me later. We need an incinerator really bad. One other thing, too, the way that some of the kids are doing the prescription pain pills, too, have changed a little bit. The plugging or butt chugging, it sounds gross, but the information that was given to me came right here from Fairhope, from some of my local kids. It's where they're starting to put the pills up they behind. Aerosol sprays. I talked to ER nurses in Mobile and both Baldwin County, and what they were saying, that they were having patients coming in, and these were adults and some kids with undissolved pills stuck in their behind. It gets directly into the system, and it can give them an overdose even quicker, and they have synthetic stuff out there to kratom. So if they do the heroin and the prescription pain pills, they will also do kratom. Kratom is supposed to be banned in Alabama, but it's not illegal in Florida, and there are other means to get it. And there's other synthetic stuffs out there that you put in the vapes for that too.
Ms. Donna, would you agree with the judge that what you're seeing on the federal side is the same that he's seeing on the state side as far as prosecutions?
Yes, and my message is short. I take my instructions from Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who loves this area. He has given all U.S. attorneys and federal prosecutors priorities. There are two. Number one, to reduce violent crime in our area. And number two, do whatever it takes to help reduce the opioid crisis. As a federal prosecutor, what we are doing is focusing in conjunction with the FBI, the DEA, and our local partners to prosecute the distributors, the doctors, the pharmacists, the physician's assistants, the nurses, and anyone who helps distribute these drugs to anybody. Our penalties are stiff. We will take all the ill-gotten gains that we can get from the doctors, the pharmacists, and we've done that. We've been very successful in doing that. But it is a zero tolerance for us. I don't have a soft, sweet message to give you. My message is, you don't want to see me. I'm a mom, and I can take off my prosecutor hat, and I can cry with the best of them. But you don't want to see me or the other prosecutors in our office, because we take this very, very seriously. If you're a dirty doctor, we're coming after you. If you're a dirty pharmacist, we're coming after you. We're going to take your cars. We're going to take your houses. We're going to take your property. We're going to take your money. And we're going to prosecute everybody we can in order to help reduce the problem here. And if you're distributing it, I don't care if you're 19, I don't care if you're 90. And we prosecuted both ends of the spectrum. But we've got excellent DEA agents here, we've got excellent FBI agents here, and we are open for business, and we are busy.
Thank you.
My heart goes out to you.
So folks, we've gone over time by 22 minutes, but I want to say that this event could not happen if it weren't for Joe Pettis, the chief in Fairhope, who, when this came together, thank you. Joe put me in touch with the college, and then Sherry Schwartz kicked in with all of the electronic gear that you see here, and they've recorded this. So this will be out. There will be a link sent out when it's edited, maybe tomorrow or the next day. And I'm hoping we're going to get this link out to the high schools through the Drug Education Council as well. We're going to put this out there, and it will. If you click on the link, it'll send you to a YouTube channel where your friends, if you were here tonight and you liked what you heard, you think this is an important message, then refer your friends to this link so they can see what you saw tonight. Because as you heard from the professionals that have been doing this a lot longer than me, we can't arrest our way out of it. We need the community's help. We need mamas and daddies and sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles. We need them all to get involved and get in your children's business and find out what they're doing. So if there are no more questions at this time, remember that these ladies will be out by the Drug Education Council table. So if you want to share some things with them or ask them questions, you can. We got one last question.
I'm sorry to wait so long until everybody had left to bring this up, but I've been caught up in your system, Louisiana system, a lot of systems my whole life, and what I think we're fighting is a human solution to a spiritual problem. I mean, you can say what you want. I've been plagued by addiction my whole life, and the only time I've had any success in recovery was when I had a strong spiritual connection with my Creator. And I feel like if we don't get God back in the schools, the problem's just going to compound itself, because we got God in prisons. We can still have Bibles. We can bring Bibles. I've been to prison ministries. I've been to places to help people that there was no help for, and there is help at home as parents. I had my little girl when I was 51. She's 8 years old now, and I got a 9-year-old. I'm 59. I don't know how much time I got left, so I don't care if I'm embarrassing myself, and I kind of feel embarrassed, because I've been a successful contractor right here in Baldwin County. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My addiction started when I was 14 years old, and I got in a motorcycle accident, and and by 72, everybody was into heroin and robbing drugstores and going to dentists, getting teeth pulled, do what they had to do. But it's been an epidemic for a long time. It was mushrooms, acid. It's always been something, and it's always going to be something if we don't get some spirituality in the people that are running the country, in the people that are raising the kids, and put an end to this.
Thank you, sir. Well said. Folks, remember the Drug Education Council table is just outside. Miss Stacy Jesse is there for you students to sign in if you need it. Thank you.